Here are 10 things you must know when traveling or visiting to Mexico, along with a bonus tip at the end. When traveling here in Mexico, you'll definitely be dining here because the food here is amazing. So here are a few tips related to food and dining. Tip number 1. When you go to restaurants and pass by people eating at tables, you'll be curious to see what they are eating and might even take a look. This is not a problem as long as you say this word, provecho. This means enjoy, and it's also a sign of respect and in a subtle way saying sorry for passing by your table while you're eating. We think this is a very kind and respectful gesture that they use here, and it's definitely one of our number 1 favorites. Provecho. Tip number 2. Here are a few more things you need to know when traveling to Mexico. If you got invited to hang out with some friends, which more than likely you will because the people here are so welcoming and friendly, or got invited to hang out with a gathering, never go empty-handed or with just food for yourself. Here, it's considered rude, and you might hear this in a kind of funny way.
Móchate, vato.
This means in a funny way, share, dude. Why just bring food for yourself? Share. Tip number 2 is actually a 2-in-1 tip for you. Meaning, first, never bring food for yourself or just come empty-handed. And 2, if you hear mochate, it means share, dude. Tip number 3. This one's about hand gesture mannerisms. If you see somebody doing this, or this, with their finger in this way, it doesn't mean that they're flirting with you, pointing at you, or calling you over. It simply means that they are agreeing with what they are hearing, meaning yes, yes, correct, yes. It's their simple thing that they use when they're communicating with one another. We think it's funny, but it also kind of reminds us of the Scary Movie.
Here's Johnny.
It isn't real. Tip number 4. This one's about hand gesture mannerisms again. If you see somebody stick their hand out like this, it doesn't mean they're telling you to buzz off, flipping you off, or want to backhand you or something. On the contrary, it's a sign of respect, honor, or giving thanks. It's an old-fashioned gentleman's hand gesture of respect. It originates from the old traditional taking off and tipping of the hat as a sign of respect, giving thanks, or honor. Tip number 5. If you hear somebody doing this, don't worry, there's nothing physically wrong with him. He's not having an attack, nor are you in the fear of being attacked or scalped by Aztecs. It's not a war call or a mating call. He's simply excited with pride and honor. This is called a grito. This is the history of the grito. However, many people in Mexico also believe it truly originates from Aztecs' indigenous native tribes as a call for battle. These days, they use it for many different reasons. Some for a cheer of celebration, some for an emotion of hard times, or in a mariachi song. Often when a victory has been won, or more frequently now, just after a shot of tequila. Tip number 6. I'm going to inform you how to get around in the streets here, whether walking or driving. Back in our home country, the pedestrian is always right, which means the pedestrians have the right of way before cars. Here, the pedestrian is not right. The cars will keep going no matter who is crossing the streets. The cars will not stop for you. So be aware not to attempt to walk in front of a car thinking you have the right, because that could be a fatal mistake. Beep, beep. Tip number 7. There are stoplights and crosswalks here. However, it doesn't seem like everybody uses the crosswalks here. People here cross the street randomly at will and never seem to get a ticket for it. Here, you can actually cross the street here whenever it appears safe to, and without even getting pulled over by the police. The traffic here is strange, but it somehow seems to work. We see less accidents than back in our home country. It's like a giant synchronized pool of birds or fish all flying together at the exact space and time, and it just seems to work somehow. On the subject of traffic and police, you might see an uncommon side of this. Police and caravans with guns out doesn't necessarily mean something's going on here. So don't worry, there's no state of emergency, there's not a war going on, or you're not being targeted or chased. Just think of it as a parade or show of force, and continue to proceed walking or driving as you were. Tip number 8. Here in the streets of Mexico, there are many street vendors, entrepreneurs, cooks, bakers, craft makers walking the streets selling their goods. Look at them from the positive perspective that they are working hard in their craft to sell something, to make a living, and sometimes just to eat. They are working hard. They are not just asking for a money handout. You may be approached by them at coffee shops, restaurants, or sometimes just walking the streets. There is no need to be rude to them and say, "No gracias." In other words, "Don't bother me." That's kind of rude and unnecessary. Here, instead of "no thank you," we say "thank you" to keep things on a positive note. Or you could say like my dad says, "Thank you for your presentation." Just smile and keep things positive. And when approached, say gracias. Tip number 9. Here, the time and speed is much different from what we're used to in the States. Everyone here is on a much cooler slowed down time where they actually enjoy their days more. Everything here is what they call tranquilo, which means cool speed, cool time, cool vibing. It's a whole different lifestyle from the fast pace that we're used to. However, we've grown to appreciate it. But there is something you should know. If someone here tells you mañana, which means tomorrow, it might not necessarily be tomorrow. Mañana to them could be mañana, mañana, mañana. A tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow that may never come.
Mañana, mañana, mañana.
Speaking of, and related to mañana time, if you're ever making any deals or negotiations regarding money, make sure you get a clear understanding of the price and service, or even get it written on paper or get a contract if possible. What you may have thought was $500, for example, could all of a sudden end up $1,200. It's important you get a clear understanding when negotiating any deal so that you don't get caught up by surprise with a change up of the price. But then again, that goes for all countries everywhere. Here are the bonus tips I promised you at the end of this video. If you like this video and wish to see another video of more travel tips, smash the like button and leave a comment to us. Bonus tip number 1. In other countries, you might get away with insulting each other, especially online where it runs rampant, where people insult each other with the luxury of hiding behind their screens. Here in Mexico, they don't really do things like that. Everything can pretty much be handled in a tranquilo, cool way. If a person chooses to cross the line and chooses to lose control of their emotions and act out loud or abruptly, they've automatically lost the battle of the situation. It's important to keep control of your emotions, especially in another country like Mexico. Final bonus tip number 2. The people here are naturally very kind, loving, and cool. Tranquilo, remember? But if you do cross the line of respect, they will definitely respond. If you encounter a situation and have taken the risk and chance of losing control of your emotions and taken the chance of insulting a Mexican, you will more than likely get a shocking right hook to the jaw.